Deciding your course is the first important decision you will have to make. If you are watching and you already know what subject you want to do, don't click away, because there will be something here for you nonetheless.
Choosing your course and university is very important. The earlier you know what course you want to pursue, the more insight you get as to whether it will suit you and the more preparation you can do. This will also give you an indication as to which university to choose.
When I first began exploring university courses, I wasn't even aware that natural sciences existed as a course. I was actually quite unsure as to what I wanted to study. I knew I was particularly drawn to chemistry, but I was equally certain that I didn't want to study it on its own. And it was only when I began reading around the subject outside of my A-levels, from my personal statement, that the areas of chemistry I found the most interesting were those that really bridged physics and chemistry.
A lot of subjects have multiple variations at both Oxford and Cambridge. For me, I had the option between PPE or philosophy and theology at Oxford, but was also considering theology, religion and philosophy of religion at Cambridge. In my case, I was slightly more interested in theology. This quickly meant that whilst I was considering PPE, it wasn't really on the table anymore. This meant deciding between two very similar courses, one at Oxford and one at Cambridge. At this point, I'd say it's down to looking at the individual courses in detail. In my case, the differences were subtle, but significant enough to sway me in the Oxford direction.
So really looking into the areas that you're most interested in and what is offered in a specific course is crucial to finding the course that's best suited to you.
On top of this, I would recommend also beginning to consider aspects such as which city you prefer, any extracurriculars which either of the universities do particularly well, or even if there is a specific college you like the look of.
The courses and/or admissions processes can differ drastically depending on the university and can sometimes make the choice of university for you. For me, I found the admissions process for Cambridge to be very arduous, since it requires an additional exam to be taken in the summer with your A-levels, something I didn't find appealing.
For natural sciences, I had to take the engineering and science admissions tests, also known as the ESAT, in October, for which I took the chemistry, physics and math sections. Preparation for the admissions tests is a long process as it requires a lot of consistent practice, so starting early makes a huge difference.
Admissions tests were a large part of the preparation process for me, since it is the main metric used for my subject in determining whether you get invited to interview.
I started by going through the ESAT specification in July to ensure I knew all the content that could come up, before working through loads of practice questions in August. I used not only the old papers for my specific exam, but also those for other admissions tests, such as the PAT for physics and the TMUA for maths, as they're similar in style.
I ended up doing two admissions tests, the MAT, which no longer exists, and the TMUA, the latter which is now being used by Oxford from 2026 onwards. In short, the preparation for me included a lot of practice. Firstly, past paper resources for these admissions tests can be found online on the admissions test website. I would recommend going through each of them at least once, even multiple times before sitting the exam. They are a good way of becoming familiar with the type of questions and to learn what you need to know for that particular test. I would also recommend attempting other questions, be it extensions of the course or, for maths, step papers for example. All of this will improve your problem-solving ability and will help you to learn new techniques, making you more adept to solve problems in the future.
I started prep by attending extension lessons for chemistry and physics here at Elton, where I got practice answering the type of problem-solving and critical thinking questions that mirror the style of the ESAT and also future interviews. The summer was the most crucial time for ESAT prep, as once you come back in September, you only have just over a month until the actual exam, which is already a busy month from personal statements being finalised and regular school workload.
Of course, it's also important to engage with subject extension sessions, given that they set you off on the right path of where and how to extend your knowledge beyond the curriculum. Without them, I would have been somewhat lost on where to begin, so these sessions are a good way to make an overwhelming task easier. Also, I can only speak for history, but in my case the sessions are led by a teacher with years of experience in admissions preparation.
I went to all the biology extension sessions. In the beginning, I found them really hard and quite daunting, but I tried really hard to flip it around and enjoy talking about the difficult areas in my subject. This definitely helped me with my interview, and it made it feel less stressful as I was able to go into it with that same mindset of just trying to have fun.
They want students who are not only good at, but love the subjects they're applying for. You are far more likely to be a better student at that university if you are actively inspired by what the lecturers have to say. In the admissions process, this means even if you have straight A stars, you could lose out to someone with lower grades.
In terms of developing your interests outside the curriculum, it isn't really possible if you didn't choose a subject you're genuinely interested in. If you did choose one you like, then reading books and discussing with your peer mentor is, in my opinion, the best way to further develop your interest.
Now, I know that reading outside of the curriculum seems like a big ask, especially on top of all the work that school sets. But reading only just 1 or 2 articles a day can help exponentially. That's what I did. And during the months leading up to my interview, I made sure that I read at least 1 or 2 articles per day in the morning before I went to school.
By now, you've probably heard that Oxbridge prioritised supercurriculars over co-curricular activities. This is spot on. And immediately what came to mind at the beginning of my journey was reading. By no way diminishing the value of reading, after all, books and articles will likely be an essential part of your statement, it's important to consider other supercurriculars to enhance the statement itself, but also stimulate your time in preparing. For me, this was in the form of essay competitions, attending lectures and a research project. But this may vary depending on your subject. Again, the rule of being selective still applies, but be adventurous and if in doubt, go for it.
It is, of course, a process which requires a lot of time and effort, and if you're doing it for the sake of it, I can almost guarantee you'll hate it. If you truly like the subject that you're investing hours and hours into, then it will be a difficult but ultimately rewarding process, and you'll come out being a lot more knowledgeable about the subject than when you first went in.
When I was in the summer of year 12, writing my personal statement, I was relatively lost as to where to start, initially under the impression that it was meant to resemble something like a CV. But this mindset only confused my direction more than it did to guide it. That was when I watched a video by an Oxford submissions tutor who explained that tutors use personal statements to know more about your academic passion in your subject, rather than you yourself as an individual. So that's exactly what I did. Instead of listing every single achievement, whether it be from music, sport or art since year 7, I wrote what was essentially a mini essay on the relationships between aestheticism and literature in the 19th to 20th century.
I've learnt talking to other offer holders for biology at Oxford that there are many different ways to write a good personal statement. So my advice would be to try and get as many supercurricular activities done before you try to write your personal statement, and then to just keep having a go at writing it.
It's also a lot easier to write your statement if it flows together with similar themes and concepts. For the personal statement itself, in my opinion, I think it's important to strike a balance between showing academic rigor or understanding and emotional attachment to what you want to study. Don't say, I love this subject because it's fascinating, because the professors already know it's fascinating. That's why they're professors. Instead, describe a specific moment that made you say, wow, and describe your feelings at that point. For me, that was slowly, painstakingly unearthing a piece of amphora from nearly 2,000 years ago, with finger marks imprinted down the side. It wasn't anything that made me sound smart, but it made me sound invested. And that passion in not just your learning, but what you're learning about, is what will make you stand out against the dozens of other applicants you'll be competing against.
And definitely be prepared to totally scrap it and rewrite it. I definitely had a fair few drafts until it clicked. Building on this, I think it's important that you don't just pick what areas of your subject you explore next because it would look good on your statement. The personal statement is a lot easier to write if it follows a genuine journey between each topic that interested you and how it led you to the next one.
I found my OE mentor to be an invaluable resource. As she had done the exact same courses I was applying to, she helped me realise what sort of skills and interests the admissions tutors were looking for. Aside from that though, she helped me confirm that history at Cambridge was something I genuinely wanted to study, given that she had, in my opinion, a lot of insightful things to say. These insights were especially useful for improving my personal statement in terms of content and developing my views on the stuff I wrote.
While I didn't get many opportunities to talk to my OE mentor, the most useful thing he told me was about how he first started his journey towards an application and some easy first steps to take, because I was finding it difficult to find a place to start. He recommended some more accessible and easy to read books that he read and didn't put on his personal statement, and encouraged me not to worry about making sure everything I did was worth putting on my personal statement. Instead, he said early on to just try and figure out which parts of the subject I enjoyed the most.
My interviews were in mid-December, but as you're only given a few weeks' notice or less, it's important to start your prep early. I had around 20 mock interviews in both physics, chemistry, as well as a few in maths, from September up until my interview in December. To source these, I contacted OEs, currently studying chemistry and physics at Oxbridge, who both gave me 2 mock interviews, including questions they were given in their actual interviews. I also asked my subject teachers, who were also able to offer me great mock interviews in both sciences as well as maths. So don't be afraid to bug your teachers for as many as possible, as these were incredibly useful and they got me used to thinking on the spot, as well as speaking my thought process out loud.
To prepare for interview, it's important to actually know the material you've put in your personal statement, as well as how it might link to your A-level curriculum. In my opinion, the best way to prepare is by reading a lot of books. From this, you can build a broad range of knowledge on your subject, and then you have the freedom to take the questions in any relevant direction you want. Of course, mock interviews should naturally be a part of any preparation. Your interview won't ever be exactly the same, but skills such as quick thinking and articulating your thoughts usually need to be developed.
In terms of interview prep, aside from mock interviews and more direct practice, I think something I did that really helped me was during form time on a Friday morning, I would talk to my form teacher about the biology book I was currently reading, discussing what I found interesting, but also what I didn't quite understand. He would then push me and help me work out the parts I didn't understand. I think this was a really good way to build confidence talking about my interests and learning to build ideas and opinions on the spot.
It is important that you practice the interview process, preferably with someone you don't know, in order to practice what it is like explaining your thought process to someone else. This is also important since interviews are mostly online nowadays, so familiarizing yourself with what it is like is important. The school will provide you with mock interviewers who are happy to help. Your Elton mentor will also be willing to help you with this, as well as your teachers. It's important not to stress during these interviews. If you don't know what to do immediately, the problems are designed to challenge and explore your thought process, as well as how teachable are you. They should not be possible to solve immediately without exploring the problem, and you are often given prompts by your interviewer to guide you in the right direction.
When I passed the first round of applications and into the interview round, I was absolutely ecstatic. I was extremely lucky to have the full support of the entire English department too, who helped in preparing mock interviews for me and suggesting book recommendations and literature and poetry events to go to. And just by practicing to having these sort of conversations, this really helped with fluently vocalizing my thoughts and communicating my passion in English across.
Myself and other Oxbridge applicants, despite slight difference in subjects, enjoyed discussing overlapping topics during lunchtimes or free periods, expanding each other's knowledge and exploring related disciplines.
For interview preparation, I cannot stress the importance of the work you do in the year before the interview would take place. Building your problem-solving skills and techniques is the best way to excel at these interviews, since it will allow you to develop the ability to solve problems given to you in the interview.
And lastly, for interview prep, I looked on YouTube at example interviews for chemistry and physics, posted by both Cambridge and Oxford, and watched those and attempted answering every question out loud, how I might in an actual interview, before watching the students answer, as this helped give me a great idea of what interviews might feel and look like on the day.
So, in conclusion, while initially it felt like an impossible task, in the end, I actually found myself really enjoying the process and the complex areas of my subject I discovered as a part of it. Good luck with your application, and my final tip is to believe in yourself and to believe that you can be successful.